everybody. Welcome to another episode here, Off the Cuff, where conversations lead to inspiration. I'm your host, Christian Palma, and today I'm joined by entrepreneur, CEO, and founder of Latinx, a content media platform showcasing Latinx brands and building community along the way. She's a Guatemalan and Nicaraguan Latina who has a passion for using intentional relationship building to create and foster community and businesses. She raised $1 million in capital and more recently successfully launched her second company, Our Paradiso, first of its kind, beauty and wellness online retailer rooted in heritage and ritual. This is a conversation you don't want to miss. And here's Off the Cuff with Brittany Chavez. Brittany, what's going on?
I'm so happy to finally make this happen with you.
Listen.
Let's do it.
Oh my goodness. We are in your safe haven.
Yeah.
You call this your safe haven. Mm-hmm. First and foremost, I'm excited about today's conversation because it's one that I've been really looking forward to since you navigated from LA to New York.
Yeah.
We touched base prior to this, but I'm excited. I'm excited to be in safe haven, so I just wanted to say thank you for having us here today.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And
absolutely.
Thank you all for being here.
Let's
really
do
excited.
It. Let's do it. So let's get to it.
Okay.
You've done a lot of podcasts. You've been filmed. You've shared your story in many tremendous ways, and they've all been great. And one of the things that you had mentioned was that every conversation you have on these podcasts and these episodes or in the press, it always attracts into a specific time in your life.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I want to take it into the present right now.
Thank you.
Where are you now? Where are you now mentally, physically, emotionally as you reflect on your life?
What's so crazy is I don't think I've ever been on a podcast and been asked that question.
Wow.
And I think that is it because I don't know, but I know that I'm in a space now where I don't identify with my trauma anymore. And I'm so grateful that last year, while I was in a season of really intense therapy and healing, that I got to document my story on these incredible platforms. I'm excited to be 60 years old and to look back and to listen to my story being audio documented. But I think right now I'm in a place where it's really hard to identify with my upbringing because all my relationships are good. My mom and I are great. You know what I mean? I'm so at peace with my dad, and I'm in a place of, I posted this yesterday that I'm in my safety era, where last year I did a lot of work and this year I'm exhausted and I'm tired. And so I want to be able to allow myself to do nothing. This is my season of doing nothing. And when I am doing something, it's coming from a place of abundance and not scarcity. And it's coming from a place of love and creation. And it's my slow season. I know that New York summers are very beautiful and I'm excited to go outside eventually, but I've never felt safe for this long ever in my life. And I enjoy being in my office and creating from home and laying down on the couch, and living with my boyfriend and my partner. It feels really good. It feels very calm.
Yeah.
And so last year, oh my gosh, even right now I'm crying, but I think when I was on these podcasts, I was crying from a place of grief, or having to revisit things that I wanted to talk through and let out, but it's kind of why open the door again? I'm already at peace with it. It's done, and so it is.
Absolutely.
So this is the era of safety, of calm, of abundance, of gratitude. It feels like I've turned a new leaf.
I love that, and I think
you.
It's so empowering, it's so inspiring, right? Especially within households, within the Latino household.
Yeah.
That, sometimes so many of our family members go through so much trials and tribulations, and they have their own trauma, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes we inherit that trauma feeling like it's ours.
But when you fully accept that, you embrace that, right? And then you move in gratitude. Like, I even had to do healing myself. And I feel like I'm in a place where I'm grateful, right?
I'm grateful.
And I'm not questioning anymore.
No, I think I used to I identified so much with my trauma, like as a second gen daughter of a teen mother who yada, 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 like we're good, like my mom, it's so played, it's so tired for me personally.
Right.
My mom is incredible. She and I have the best relationship. Like, we're all good now. So, even to bring back that stuff, like, I don't want to re-traumatize my loved ones or like bring up old things that we've already worked past. For what? For why? We already apologized. We're good. And so I think now you're right. I think, like, as Latinos, how do we, collectively move past our traumas and talk about love?
Yeah. And sometimes, so, it's crazy because I remember, like, I grew up in a household where there was a little bit of tough love, right?
Yeah.
And I thought that was the only way to love. And I started to, as I got older, I started to accept the tough love because I looked at it as a form like, okay, that might be a verbal thing, but actions speak louder than words when I was growing up. And, my family always showed up. My dad was the person who, with the tough love and stuff. But mom on the other end was just like all love, like, in every different forms. So it was a balance, beautiful. Right? It was a balance that I had to really inherit. And I think that made me and built me to the person I am today. And you talk about mom, you talk about, another person that's inspiring too is your grandmother.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things we have in common, aside from us both being Guatemalan. It's something that I really hold true to my heart because my grandmother actually built what I'm building now, right?
That's beautiful.
She instilled these principles. What are some of the principles that they instilled in you?
I love these questions. Principles that my mom and grandmother instilled in me. Independence is the first thing that comes to mind. I think given their circumstances, they unfortunately had to be independent. However, I think being around them, it allowed me to really refine and like develop my toolbox, I would say they're so personable. Like my mom, she has like so many friends. She's so personable and she has such a magnetic energy. And she's able to navigate rooms and make people feel so loved. Wow. She also, like, she was in her corporate jobs as a Latina, like she was always making friends with the Latino, like, service workers, and so there was also, like, as she navigated these spaces, she never forgot, like, where she came from and, like, what matters to her and, like, culture. And so I feel like she has an ability to make people feel really loved and cared for and seen, I've gotten to a point now where I'm like, she has such a blossoming social life, and the fact that she makes time for me to, like, have hour-long conversations every day, I feel, like, so honored, because I see her for, like, the woman that she is and the woman that other people see. I see it now that I'm, in my 30s, and, she and I are only 17 years apart. So, yeah, I feel like a lot of gratitude for the time that she makes for me and her loved ones. And so I try to do the same.
That's beautiful.
Oh my God, I'm like...
Yeah, it's a safe space,
Yeah.
And it's funny you mentioned about, like, she built community within.
Yeah.
And I think that really attests to what you did. And you saw a gap, right? I want to paint the picture a little bit more for, like, the audience who may be the first time tuning in, right? To, like, kind of how Shop Latinx came to about. Because you saw the gap. And for you, growing up in LA, you saw a gap of not being able to find your tribe, looking for community.
Yes.
trying to identify and discover your identity and language and all these barriers that you were feeling at that moment, right? At that point, what clicked for you to say, I'm seeing this challenge, I want to be the solution for it?
What clicked in me? I think at that time, I don't even know what clicked in me for me to be like, I'm going to do it. I honestly, I would have to like go back and really think about that. I really don't know what pushed me to lead, to be the one to create that. I feel like that's a huge endeavor that I had placed on myself. And I don't know why I thought that I would be the best one to do that. Because that's like really big. Yeah. And also too, at the time I didn't think that I had the skill set because I didn't come from a conventional, background, corporate background. I didn't have an education in marketing. I knew that I was really good at bridging gaps and identifying key people and places that I've built relationships with, and I knew how to bring them together. Like even, in the schoolyard in middle school, I hung out with the emo white kids and the black and brown kids, and I would I always bridged these groups together. But I honestly don't know, because that's very ambitious. To start a company, I think is very ambitious, and it takes a lot of bravery and boldness, and you have to be that's very vulnerable, and you have to be okay with getting embarrassed constantly. I couldn't tell you. I don't know why.
And how did you handle some of those early moments, right? When the idea was there, Shop Latinx, to create this marketplace, right? To really hold community, right? What unraveled from then and there?
Well, the idea to build Shop Latinx and then the marketplace, I think once I identified the need and I saw validation, I took that validation and I used it as a cloak of armor or something to just break through barriers. I managed to raise $1 million in venture capital, and I think the validation that I got through Instagram comments and emails, and validation that I got from the brands, saying that there is a need for this. I think I just kept going. I really need to sit back and reflect on that period.
Absolutely. And it speaks to the hustle mentality you had, because I think sometimes people don't know that while you were doing this, right, you were also interning. You were also a nanny. You were also
I was a nanny.
Ubering for Matt. You were putting in the time. Take us back to that period of you were just hustling, looking to make it out the mud.
Man, I think people think that great ideas happen overnight, and they don't. Looking back, I'm it took me 7 years to get to this point.
Wow.
And it's probably going to take another 7 for it to be what I want it to be,
Yeah.
And so the lessons that I've been taking from even creating Shop Latinx is every day it's just one foot in front of the other. And if that's all you can do, then at least you did something. And going back, when I was creating Shop Latinx, I think it did become a safe haven. That little online space where I felt seen and I felt I could build relationships, because my personal life was very complicated. There were a lot of lessons that I was learning around money and around, oh my God. I wasn't in a good relationship at the time. So Shop Latinx, I think, became, I think with a photographer, right? Maybe they're shy or have social anxiety, or maybe they're introverted, but they have that camera, that piece of equipment that, can can help them build relationships or have a human interaction, because who doesn't want their picture taken?
Right.
You know, so they can be like, hey, can I take a picture of you? And then that's what sparks a conversation. I think for me, like Shop Latinx was my camera in a way, where it's like I'm leveraging this community to build a community of my own. So, and we're now, I see that there's a lot of people like me with similar backgrounds or issues with identity that are leveraging Shop Latinx to find their people, to promote their products, you know, to find, you know, new mentors that can help them with their business. And I felt like all of us were using Shop Latinx as a vessel to build community, to receive information on how to grow their companies. And so, yeah, that's what I was holding on to in those early days.
Yeah, I love that. And I think community was so super important because, like, you know, even for me, when I'm putting episodes out and I'm holding conversations like this, it's like community that backs you up in the forefront, that early support.
Yeah.
And you mentioned a few kind of testimonials, right, almost, of like some of these brands coming into the Shop Latinx. Was there one in particular that comes to mind that it reminded you that this is actually what you're supposed to be doing?
Well, I think when I started Shop Latinx, around the same time, I was building the company with two of my friends who were building their own companies. So my friend Patty, she's the founder of Hija de tu Madre, and she's like, you know, her brand has blown up. And then my friend Julie, she's the founder of Rizos Curls, and like her brand has blown up, and she has like wild distribution, and she's doing so well for herself. And the three of us had this collective where we would go around and teach Latinas on how to build businesses. And I think that validation that we got where we would put on an event and like hundreds of Latinas would come with their notebooks ready to learn from us, you know, and I was probably like a year in of building Shop Latinx, like I knew that I needed to keep going. And then, yeah, there's so many, you know, there are brands in the marketplace. I mean, there's a good amount, you know, that we worked with that now got like a distribution deal with Target.
Wow. And,
you know, it was really, really validating. And I'm so grateful for the time that the Shop Latinx marketplace was live. It was live for around 2 years. It is no longer because we did launch the new baby.
Exactly.
But a lot of the a lot of the findings that I got from Shop Latinx is, you know, I learned some wild lessons through building the Shop Latinx marketplace. And right now we are focusing on it being a media and content platform.
Yes.
So I'm really excited to like, you know, we just hired an agency that's going to help with brand partnerships. And now that we are solely like a media and content platform, our engagement has increased exponentially. We're getting like, it's just growing on its own. But that marketplace, God, like it was like part of me, I'm so grateful, but there are so many times where it was like the bane of my existence. But without that, I wouldn't have made it to the other, like if had I just given up, like I wouldn't have made it to this other side where it like basically birthed a second company for me. And I took everything that I learned and applied it, and now I feel more confident because of Shop Latinx. So I'm like really grateful. It feels like, you know, sometimes I'd compare it to like the first child syndrome. You know, like Shop Latinx was the first child, and that's the one where like you have a tumultuous relationship. Like I'm a first child, so I know firsthand what that relationship is like. You know, like we're the tester, we're the trial and error. You know, we're the ones that our moms probably like yelled at us, and you know, and then you have that middle child, and it's like it's so much easier with the middle child because you're applying your learnings from raising that first child onto the second child. And that's kind of where I am right now in terms of business. And I've, you know, now that I've been practicing solitude and like being at home and just like being still, I see how life comes full circle.
Yeah.
These lessons.
That's beautiful.
You know?
I love that. And, you know, we're going to tap into the full circle moments, and we're going to definitely talk about your second baby now. You know, but there's a few things that you have mentioned that I want to really lean into because we're all about inspiring the entrepreneurs. We're all about, you know, how do we continue to create resources for them to know that, okay, if I'm looking to start a business, these are the tangible steps I want to do, right? But for you, you mentioned like you were able to raise $1 million off of just VC funding, right? How does that even happen? How do you get into those rooms? How do you pitch? Like, what's the preparation process?
Great question. It's going to be a semi-lengthy answer because one, I will say that I knew early on that as a Latina, to get into these spaces, I will have to work twice as hard. That's just how it is. You know, I'm brown, I don't have a college degree, and I'm a woman. So I already have a very non-conventional background when it comes to wanting to break into tech and to get investors to believe in me enough to give me hundreds of thousands of dollars. So early on, you know, I leveraged free tools. It was Instagram, it was Google. You know, people say that they don't know how to start, but I just look it up, you know, look it up until you find the answers, until you run out of questions because you see what the game plan needs to be, you know, and that's what I did. I learned about this accelerator program in LA, and I got into that accelerator program. It was Grid 110. And the reason why I knew about it was because my friend Patty, that I told you about earlier, she was in the first cohort. And so she helped me get into the next cohort. Because of that, I learned everything about venture capital and tech. But even prior to that, I mean, I remember going to the BeautyCon Summit in Los Angeles. And I was just going to summits. I was going on Eventbrite trying to find women founder tech events in Silicon Beach in Los Angeles. Like, I was going to all the free meetups, wearing my Shop Latinx shirt loud and proud. Like, again, you have to not be embarrassed. You have to be so brave and unabashedly, like, confident, you know, to navigate these rooms. And then, you know, I'm rubbing shoulders with, like, Ivy League alumni, and here I am too, you know, and I just kept hustling until I made it. You know, it just feels like a game, like a doot, doot, doot. And that's what I did, you know. I'm like, okay, I'm going to these tech conferences now. I'm getting into, you know, what are they saying about accelerator programs? And then another thing they said, I remember someone said at one of these conferences, is like, everyone in VC is on Twitter. So then I got a Twitter. I positioned myself as an expert on Latinidad. And then, you know, you got to just fake it till you make it, leverage these free tools. And then I got in front to one accelerator program, got into the next one. That's when they made their first we got our first investment of $125,000. Wow. Through that is how they prepare you to help you find product market fit, you know, create an investor deck. And then from there, they throw you in and you're in back-to-back investor meetings. And I kept doing that until I raised $1 million. And I know it sounds, this is all very high level. Like, that's like another podcast episode. But like I said, it's just like, but in between all, and it wasn't fucking easy. I was raising during the pandemic. I was sleeping on a friend's couch. I had to rent out my apartment in Boyle Heights because I had like no money. And I was really betting on Shop Latinx. It was like Shop Latinx or nothing. Like, I didn't know, you know, if it didn't work. I think that was another thing too. There was this fire in my ass. Like, it has to work because if not this, then what? You know? And then in terms of fundraising, if not me, then who? If you, you know, if this is such a huge market, the Latinx consumer, no one's talking to her. I'm talking to her. I've been like, why wouldn't you invest in me if you see that this is a valuable market? I just needed to put myself in front of the investors that understand the value in this. Right. You know what I mean? And so I think that's what's really hard, is like meeting investors in the VC space that see the value in the Latino community, because even community, it's a market with hundreds of thousands of micro communities, you know? And so meeting the ones that really got excited when I said, I'm targeting this very big community, and you don't, like, it's fucking huge. Like, and and meeting the ones that like are like, yeah, I know how big it is. You're doing that? Oh, that's crazy. You know what I mean? That is very, very rare. I managed to find the ones that believed in me in this market enough to want to invest. Yeah. But I will say, if you're a Latino targeting Latinos, wanting to get VC funding, you know, it's gonna be hard. It was hard for me to get investors who believe. But it's possible. Yeah. It's not impossible, you know? Yeah. And that's been my journey. I think doing a lot of what people might think is like the impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy, you know, and first and foremost, congratulations
Thank
for
you.
that, right? Because not only are you showing up for yourself in these rooms, but you're showing everybody is out there who may have an idea that now knows that I can actually go to the VC, pitch what I need to pitch because I've seen Brittany do it, right? And I think representation is very important, and especially for young entrepreneurs, where they're Latina, Latino, and so on and so forth within the Latinx community, right? It's super important for us to really see you kind of paving the way to say, all right, bet, let me also start putting, you know, that into fruition, you know. And you also had investments from celebrities as well, right? And all of these things, and you know, listen, the floor is open whether you want to share it or not.
I can't share it like contractually. Can't even tell their names just yet. But there's some big celebrities.
Yes, there is. You know, and I'm curious to know, and like, not even on the name aspect, right? But I'm curious to know, like, that sometimes can be added pressure to perform, to do the things that you do. Now I invested in you in the brand. Okay, what comes next, right? How do you handle those pressures when you feel like you may feel it in those moments?
Are you talking about like pressures because now I have celebrities on the cap table?
In the sense of now you have investments, you have celebrities, you have VC funders coming in, and it's just like pressure. Now I give you all of this up front. What happens then? Like, how do you deal with those pressures?
So this time last year, oh my gosh, this time last year I was living in Portland and I was feeling that pressure from investors. I think what's so frustrating about navigating venture capital and the mindset of these venture capitalists is that they expect such large scale very, very quickly. They're like, I want to give you 1 million, and in a year I expect that 1 million investment to be at 100 million. These investors are not operators. They've never, you know, a lot of them have never been founders. They just have money and then they just allot it to whichever companies they think is going to make their funds the largest return, right? But they're not in the day-to-day. They don't understand that good things take time. You know, I want to be here for a long time, you know, and I want to have a very phenomenal company. And in VC, you see that, you know, this company raises $100 million at a crazy valuation. It's valued at $1 billion. And then 2 years later, it's done. I mean, look at Clubhouse. You know, we were all on Clubhouse during the pandemic. You know, it was valued at over $1 billion. And then within, you know, celebrities, blah, 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 within 2 years, it shuts down. You know, like, I don't want to be that type of company. And I feel like last year I allowed for, you know, I'll reframe it and take accountability. Like, I allowed those types of thoughts to consume me. And I'm comparing myself to like Uber, you know what I mean? Who's not even profitable, or these other companies. And I didn't give myself the grace. And I honestly think that I kept crashing into a wall, and then I had to take like 8 months to really sit down, focus on myself, rest, and then be like, okay, I need to get back to the basics. Investors gave me $1 million to create a marketplace, which is essentially a retailer. I have zero retail background. I worked at Nordstrom in the sunglass department, like that in the J. Crew outlet at Ontario Mills. I don't understand, and now I'm at a place where I'm like, oh, I see why people don't build retailers. It's a logistical hell, but I love it, and I feel like that's what I'm destined to do. That is my destiny. However, I really needed to take time to have conversations with the VP of merchandising at Barney's, the VP of Sephora at Kohl's, talk to beauty brands and ask them what their experience was like being in a Sephora. You know what I mean? What should, learning about margins, learning about 3PL and fulfillment. Yeah. I feel like I didn't give myself that grace. Neither did these investors. I feel like they just you give me $1 million, all of a sudden I'm a fucking genius. I know everything about everything, and now I'm just gonna build into scale. No, I think that especially for underrepresented founders or founders with non-conventional backgrounds, if my investors aren't gonna give me the tools, I need to be still for a second and learn everything before I take the first step. Absolutely. And I think with Shop.NX, I just ran. I was throwing shit at the wall, hoping it would stick. Nothing stuck. And then it just left me burnt out, resentful, sad, depressed, thinking I'm about to shut down the door. But once I became still and just became a sponge and be hey, I want to dominate an industry. I don't even know anything about this industry. Wow. I need to go learn about it. And then that's where our Paradiso came. And it just feels so easy. Wow. Not easy, but it just makes sense because I granted myself that time when investors were we need you to launch. I was no, I'm bye. I ghosted some and I feel good about it.
Absolutely. and you feel good, and I can sense the energy, right? Because I feel like sometimes we need to get ourselves in the best shape of our lives in order for, not even on the physical sense, but mentally, spiritually, in all senses, right? In order for you to kind of perform in what you're destined to do. And it's creator because you went back to the core elements and the root of it, similar to how your family raised you with rich of love. Maybe not the most capital, but just enough. You had all you needed.
Yeah.
Right? And I think going back to those core principles is exactly what you did. But in that midst of you wanting to throw in the towel, because I feel it sometimes too, and I know there's so many people watching this right now, it's just yo, my ideas are not sticking. Things are not really sticking on the wall. I don't know what direction to take. And I feel it as an entrepreneur myself who's looking to build something from ground up. It's just brands are not getting back to me. I believe in this so much. I'm having people on the show like Brittany, she's doing phenomenal. They need, this is a perfect time to invest, right? As we're building. What would you share to the entrepreneurs right now who are watching this? To the Latinas, who the Latina startup founders who may be watching this, seeing you as an inspiration right now, that their ideas are probably not sticking, they're not getting the fulfillment that they already need right now, or maybe they are, and they're looking to take it to the next level. What would you share with them?
What would I share with the Latinas who are looking to start, whose ideas aren't sticking? Never stop being a student. If it isn't sticking, find out why. And if you have assumptions, then go validate those assumptions. You know what I mean? Talk to your market. I think talk to your consumer, talk to everyone. Gather as much data as you can. I think we make a lot of assumptions, but they need to be data driven. If it's not sticking, if you're, I would say keep going, but be smart about it, because you don't want to keep going and pushing for something that maybe, could have been tweaked had you just asked your customer or asked, done more research. So I think being smart about your time, being smart about the way that you do your research, and talking to your consumer and asking them questions, reaching out for help, leveraging LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and asking potential mentors. And if they don't respond, don't use that as a crutch for you to not do anything. You gotta just keep going. you know? I think that's it too, because you're like, yeah, you know, I'm gonna do this, but you know, I'm just waiting on homegirl to get back to me. It's been 2 weeks, you know, but she did say that she was, no, then figure it out. You know, I think there's so many tools now, from ChatGPT to something where you can learn, and I think just never stop being a student, you know, and never stop refining. And if you want to be the best, I think there is some sacrifice that comes with wanting to be a leader in your category or in your field, you know? And I'm not like a hustle culture type girl, but I do think that there's a lot of hustle if you want to be a founder. Yeah. And to the Latina that, what's the second half?
Who's looking to just amplify their brand, who has the wheels turning.
Yeah.
As you, right, you took it from 150K investment to now $1 million plus, right? Like, how does one elevate their company, their brand, from getting into that next level?
You got to keep growing your audience, keep growing your community, you know, have a meetup at the park, you know, get some Tostitos and some salsa, and, you know, play some music, make it, you know, BYOB or turn it potluck style, give them samples of your product, you know what I mean? Take some UGC content. I think that, you know, there was a blessing and a curse of raising that $1 million. I think for me, that $1 million transformed my life. And it allowed me to live very comfortably for the amount of time that I had the $1 million. However, I think I was so comfortable that I didn't feel pressured to learn how to monetize, because I had $1 million in my bank account. Even when it got down to like 300K, it's 300,000 in my business bank account. You know what I mean? So I wasn't really I think I put off learning how to monetize and scale because I felt like I made it. But now that money is now dwindling in my bank account, because we're in the middle of another, you know, I'm about to kick off my raise again, but it's a pretty uncomfortable position to be in. However, it's putting fire in my ass to learn how to make money. In the last couple of years, I've learned how to raise money, but to actually like monetize, I'm learning that right now, and it's because that investment is running out. And I don't see it as I think it's a blessing in disguise, because now I'm forced to think from a perspective of a business owner. Right. You know, I'm learning the fundamentals of how to upsell and all the data and all these things, you know, and I'm kind of back to almost bootstrapping in a way. But I think when you're in a place of not having a lot of money is where the innovation comes. I started Shop Latinx when I had nothing. I had absolutely nothing to my name, you know, and Shop Latinx, I think I learned a lot of lessons when we raised that money, but I will say, like, it kind of plateaued, you know, and it's not a bad thing, because in the midst of that plateau, I had to take care of myself. Right. And now that I made it to the other side personally, I know that I could do what I can. I know that I can grow this company with the remainder of the money that I have. Sure. You know, absolutely. And I'm starting it for the first time since running this company. Like, I'm starting to actually make revenue.
Let's get it.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And it feels really good. So don't let lack of money or resources, you know, to the Latinas that are listening, don't let that stop you from creating a company. You're creating a company so that you can eventually start making money, right? It's good. The money's gonna come. You just gotta put in that work, and it's gonna be fucking uncomfortable. I've been there. It sucks. It sucks having to move back home and live in my brother's playroom. You know what I mean? It sucks having my car totaled and I couldn't Uber anymore. So I'm stuck at home with my mom, who has no fucking idea what I'm trying to do. She sees the Shop Latinx, she's like, okay, like, are you gonna get a job? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you have no health insurance. You're crying, like, you know, but I think you need to just hold that. If you really believe, you gotta hold that vision. People are gonna question it, you know, like, And you got to be so like radical, like your conviction in what you're building has to be so, it has to permeate any sort of like criticism, you know, so that you can keep going. And it's hard. That's why not all of us are cut out to do it. And that's okay.
Right.
I think even being honest with yourself and being like, hey, I tried it. Yo, back to corporate I go. Sometimes I see what these big companies are offering and I see 150K, that's pretty fucking good, you know? But I think I know that I'm meant to be on this path because I see that. And then I think about losing Shop Latinx or shutting it down and I'm like, fuck out of here. I'm going back to work. I'm really uncomfortable, but this is my destiny.
And that's where the growth happens, you know? And it's crazy though, one of a mentor of mine, you know, called me randomly one time. And he mentioned to me, like, he was telling me, hey, you know, you should do this for the brand. I was like, oh, yo, I think that's a great idea. I'm going to start, like, getting, like, the creative ideas going and so on and so forth. And one of the things I feel like I've always said was, like, oh, I don't have the capital to do that. I'm looking to do this. I have these big ideas, but I don't have the capital to do that. He's like, listen, let me tell you one thing. Money is energy. You have to do the things that you want to do and move in the way as if the money's already in your bank account. So at that point, you have no limitations on doing anything you want to do. And at that point, that shifted my perspective of like, I'm no longer moving in the sense of limiting myself or boxing myself in because I'm blaming it on the capital, right? And just moving in direction because, as you said, the money will come in the right spaces, in the right places I'm going to be at. So that's one perspective I feel like really aligned to what you were just saying now, that money is energy and it would eventually come when you do the things that you love.
But I guess I do have a question for you around like, okay then, if you feel like you didn't have the capital, like what was your first step then?
Seeing what resources I had around me. Like you said, the free resources like the Instagrams, building community, checking in with your audience, connecting with mentors on the side. You know, and being able to and that almost forced me into putting together a pitch deck of like, this is my idea, this is what I'm looking for. Actually visualizing the brands, the partners of what I want to do and working backwards, right? So now that I have an idea, it's no longer in my head or saying like, I don't have the investment to do that. Now I'm putting together it on paper to say, okay, let me manifest this. Let me be intentional of who I reach out to. And then before you know it, certain things come when they're supposed to. But I had to do that self-reflection. I had to prepare myself, similar to what you had to do, right? Preparing yourself to do all that internal work. I had to put that on paper in order for me to actually visually see where I want to go.
Visualize it. And it sounds woo-woo, but it's the truth, man.
It is. It is.
You know.
And we talked about so much about the lessons, the blessings, right, of Shop Latinx. And now I want to, again, bring it back to the present because you just transformed one company but built another company.
Yeah.
Right? Our Paradiso.
Yes.
And
yeah.
Tell me about the inspiration, kind of what inspired this, and the feeling that you get now that you finally launched.
Ooh. So our Paradiso is a beauty and wellness retailer that centers Latinas. And our values are beauty, heritage, and ritual. And I will say that like all of this came to me because of the work and the wellness practices that I instilled in my day-to-day, you know, over the last year and a half, 2 years. And our Paradiso too is a result of the feedback that I got from building Shop Latinx. One thing that I did notice was out of all these products that we sold on Shop Latinx, so it was like so many categories, apparel, we're selling artisanal rugs, it was too much. But what I did see is that beauty and wellness products were the highest selling categories. Then I also saw that Latinas outspend every demographic within every single beauty category. We're also the fastest, youngest demographic. And also too, like these retailers aren't speaking to her. All these D&I initiatives, like a lot of these beauty retailers are missing the mark when it comes to speaking to this very valuable demographic that wants to be spoken to and wants to be seen in these campaigns. So I saw this area for me to create, and yeah, it was all a result of my own journey, my spiritual and wellness journey, and my experience with trying at my hand at building a marketplace, but now I'm more refined.
Nice.
And our Paradiso, I think, is also, it's only been live for a little over 2 weeks.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. But we have some amazing brands, and it's so great to see, we have some amazing brands that are so excited to be a part of what we're building. They're reaching out to us because they even see hey, I want my products to be a part of this community that genuinely speaks to her.
Right.
And yeah, my brand is in so and so and so and so, but it's just kind of sitting there looking pretty. And this retailer doesn't really attract, it only attracts, maybe it's white women, maybe it's middle-aged white women, and yeah, it looks pretty being amongst these other products, but is it really going to sell? Because I know my products really sells with her.
Right.
No one's speaking to her, so I want you to win. It feels like these other brand owners are rallying around what we're building because they want to see me win, and when I win, they all win.
Absolutely.
And it feels really good. It feels like even slicing, Shop Latinx started off as community driven, and it's gonna stay community driven, and it's gonna fucking grow. And I still see, I think of parties, content, you know what I mean? Yeah. I think of all of that. I think of just community. I want it to appeal to men and women, Our Paradiso is giving paradise. It's giving ritual. It's giving culture. It's giving, I saw something about Latinas in beauty on TikTok. They were talking about how they're never going to be, they come out, they're beautiful, they come out with amazing content, but they're not the types of girls that are invited to the Coachella parties. It's just not made for them, with them in mind.
Wow.
I want our Paradiso to be that space.
Absolutely.
That amplifies them. We are the future. 1/4 of the country is going to be Latino.
Booming.
Duh.
You know what I'm saying? And and you are doing it, right? And I think one of the things I want to hone in on is what lessons are you taking, or what one lesson that you took from Shop Latinx that you now implement into this new venture that you're saying, this is the way I'm going to do it?
Biggest one is I'm not going to bend for anyone. This is my vision. And what I envision for myself takes time, and I'm okay with that.
I love that. Simple, to the point.
Yeah.
And I think that's amazing because you are building a legacy, right? You planted a seed, and now we're going to start to see that seed unravel into, and we can't wait for more. And I think I was reading something too there, where's the long-term vision for this? I've snooped around. I said maybe a brick and mortar. What is that kind of the long-term vision?
I mean, New York is the highest spender of beauty. Latinos dominate New York. I want to have a brick and mortar out here. I want to have a retail space. I think, when people ask me who's my inspiration, I will have to say probably Gwyneth Paltrow and Goop. What that woman did with her market, I think is brilliant. And it's Goop is so wonderful and so controversial, but I think that's what makes it great because it also sparks a lot of discourse amongst people of color. And I want to be that for my community. Absolutely. I think that storytelling, brand curation, product curation, putting on events that really resonate with the wellness practices and traditions and the heritage of the diaspora of Latinidad is really what I want to do. And I do credit women like Gwyneth, that have built something that, is really inspirational to a lot of us.
Absolutely.
Jessica Alba and what she's done with like the Honest Company. You know, the way that Honest is now valued at over $1 billion.
Wow.
You know, and it's such a successful line. Like, I want to create that. You know, I want our Paradiso to be like an Ulta for Latinas that centers Latinas, but it's for everyone. You know, and I think, you know, I've never gone to Miami, but I'd love to have a space in Miami.
You're in for a good treat. Yeah.
I think so. I
That's a good
think
market,
New
yeah.
York, Miami, Los Angeles, like Mexico City, you know? And I want it to feel like luxurious. And I also know too, like Latinas, we don't only use Latina owned products,
Right.
but what does it look like to have, you know, Rizos Curls or Chill House mixed with, you know, an Elf Cosmetics or like Say Beauty, you know, all in one. But when you go in, you feel at home. The photo shoots and the women are women of color. You know, you can find your shade. You know, it's just, I think it's curated with Latinas in mind.
For sure. I love that.
So I'm really excited.
I love that. Listen, I can almost like envision it kind of like it be bilingual too.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
To fit in and kind of really capture that essence of those storytellings. You know, in the last couple of questions here as we kind of wrap up, you know, I'm curious to know, out of all the success that you've achieved thus far, you know, and I feel like you are in places right now that you're giving yourself so much time, self-care, so much self-love, and also so much grace. What is ultimately the legacy that you feel like you want to leave behind?
The legacy I want to leave behind. That's a good question. I don't want to put too much pressure on myself. So, you know, I think legacy, when I think legacy, I think, oh my God, like, they're watching, and I want to live my life. And I think I just want to, the way that, you know, I feel so in line with my highest self. And you know, I want to show Latinas and just women, just people, but mostly Latinas, that like they can have anything they want in this world, you know? And anything is possible. You know, I have 2 young brothers that are like 8 and 12, 9 and 12, 8 and 12. And they think the world of me. They think I'm so cool. And they've seen how much I've grown and transformed, you know? But it takes work. It takes like dedication to want to heal. And I want to show that, like, you know, I'm an example of someone who put in that work and made it to the other side. And I want everyone to join. You know, I think it makes me sad to know that there's people that, especially women, especially Latinas, especially brown girls, you know, that live their life and it's like a trauma, it's just a big trauma response, or they're exhausted, or they're overworking themselves because they don't know how to be still because this happened to them when they were 5. You know, I wish that everyone could release themselves of their pain, and that takes work. But that work, like, I'm an example of that, what putting in work looks like. And I think if that's my legacy, is to like be an example of someone that continues to bet on themselves and try and fall on their face and try again, then like I would love that for that to be my legacy.
That's beautiful, and there's no limits. No limits. Listen.
No limits.
No, and this is a
The
perfect
limit
time.
does not exist.
This is a perfect time to really, you know, take the time to give you your flowers, right? We
Thank
do this
you.
on the show because it's important for us. We've seen the tremendous amount of growth, you know, on the business side and on the personal side, but just out of all of that, at the end of the day, if we scrap all of that out, we know that Brittany's a good person. The intent is there. Building community is always there, and having these humanized conversations is always there. So I just wanted to say that to you, that thank you again for just having us in your space and making us feel like at home.
Oh, y'all are welcome.
I appreciate that. And on the flip side, we always ask the guests, who would you give your flowers to?
There's two people. Myra Thayes and Paula Gonzalez. I'm tired of crying, but they work with me. They're on my team. Paula runs the marketing and social. Myra's like my right hand.
Wow.
And it's something that my therapist told me was like, Brittany, a lot of your lessons, this is like this time last year, are going to be learned through the people that you hire. And they're going to be reflections of parts of you that you need to heal, relationships that continue to, you know, affect you. And it isn't until you do the work that you're going to attract the people that you're meant to do business with. And it's them.
Wow.
It's definitely them. Every day I wake up and I'm excited to work because of them. And they're just great women. Myra's a mother of two, and Paula's just the most creative, type A sweetie I've ever met. And it's just such a joy to work with them. They're amazing.
I love that. And
Yeah.
It's so empowered. There's so much power in team. You know? I love
Yes. Another lesson.
That's beautiful.
I love my team.
Listen, Brittany, you've been honestly a pleasure to have on the show. Thank you for walking us through memory lane. Thank you for inviting us again and just sharing what's to come. Because we manifest on the show, we do all of that on the show, and we've seen it happen before. So we wish you much success, honestly, and we can't wait to continue supporting you, helping you amplify, and then hopefully, you know, share this out to the world to let them know that anything is possible, because you're
Anything is possible.
living through that right now.
I appreciate that. I needed this.
I appreciate you, you know what I'm saying? But listen, and there you have it. That was Off the Cuff with Brittany Chavez.